Don Edmonds is a solution engineer at Esri based in Philadelphia, where he empowers cities and towns with geospatial technology to help them tackle the myriad of challenges that local governments face. He has a master's in urban and regional planning and is passionate about using 3D GIS to help build livable, resilient, and prosperous communities. As part of his time on Esri's Smart Cities team, he's supported many planning departments across the country with ArcGIS Urban and ArcGIS City Engine. So welcome in, Don. How's it going?
Good, Nick. Thank you and the rest of the inCitu team for having me.
So I'm going to turn the slides over to you, and I'm really excited to hear about this project. Can you tell me about how you had this idea in the first place?
Yeah, this was a tutorial that's existed online for ArcGIS City Engine for a long time, and I wanted to check it out. I also just love history, and I'm based in Philadelphia, so it was a great opportunity to play around with some of this and bring it into AR, and I'm excited to show off what I've been working on.
I should say, if anyone has questions, we have a pretty big group today. It's amazing. If you want to ask a question, feel free to type it in the chat, and we'll relay that to Don at the end. Or if you want to pick them in the middle, Don, and answer questions, feel free.
Cool. All right. I'll go ahead and share my screen, and Nick, if you can just confirm if you're able to see it
Standing by.
here.
Yep.
Awesome. All right. Again, thank you for the to the inCitu team for having me. I've been to a couple of these webinars in the past, so honored to be here to present at this one. I've been using inCitu for a year or so at this point, and I'm on the Esri side, on the GIS side, and the reason I love it inCitu so much is because it takes the community engagement aspect to a whole new level, especially with 3D GIS. And so today I want to talk to you about how you can use 3D GIS to recreate these historic buildings that have long been demolished and actually view them where they once stood in augmented reality with inCitu's app. So yeah, this was a really fun project to work on. And I think especially with the US's 250th anniversary coming up next year, there's a lot of potential to do more of this kind of work. I think there's a huge appetite for it out there to kind of see the history of our cities over the last couple hundred years. So in the US. So yeah, I hope that you enjoy it. So just to walk through how I did what recreating this historic building in 3D, I used ArcGIS City Engine to do that. And like Nick mentioned, I'm a solution engineer at Esri, and we build ArcGIS. It's the world's leading geographic information system technology. And ArcGIS City Engine is one of the products that we have. Esri actually acquired City Engine back in 2012, I believe, from a Swiss company called Procedural, and actually the R&D center for City Engine is still in Zurich, Switzerland today. And I think the best way to describe City Engine is that it's an urban design software. So it allows you to procedurally create 3D models of buildings and green spaces and streetscapes, you name it. And when I say procedurally, I mean that unlike maybe some other 3D modeling software that you're used to working with, City Engine allows you to encode all those design parameters in what's called a rule. And those rules can be applied to all sorts of different geometries like buildings or parcels. And depending what's coded in that rule, the 3D model will automatically be generated. So really useful for a large scale design work at the city level, or even as we'll get into at the building level too. So just to walk through how this works real quick. This is within City Engine. So right here I have a 3D building massing that was actually generated in ArcGIS Urban. It's another one of our products. And down at the bottom, we have all these different rules. So what I can do is I select the different floors of this building, and then I can just drag and drop one of those rules that I was talking to you about onto those floors and have it automatically generate the design that's encoded in that rule. On the right, we have different parameters in that rule that we can play around with. So if I wanted to add a deeper balcony to it, I can do that. It'll automatically generate that. If I wanted to change the facade a little bit from wood to more of a panel, I can do that as well. And of course, we need a roof for our top floor, so we can also include a roof as well. And this is just one of many rules. So if I wanted to apply a different one to the commercial first floor, I can also just drag and drop a rule on that. And these are all rules that come out of the box with City Engine. You don't have to know how to code or work with CGA, which is the code rule within City Engine. There's so many out-of-the-box rules that you can start applying, and then very quickly create a realistic looking building to bring into AR. So that was if I had a building massing, but if I just have a building footprint, I can also apply a rule there and create something similar. So this is a building footprint rule, creates a building massing at first, and then within the parameters, I can change it to be more detailed. And then again, there's all these different parameters here. So if I wanted to change the floor count from 4 floors to 9 floors or 10 or something like that, I can easily do that and it will procedurally generate that building. And then you can have predefined styles as well. So if you want to save a style and then be able to reference it back later for a specific design, excuse me, you can do that. And this is all from a building footprint. So just applying one rule to a building footprint. And then if you just have parcels, there's also a rule for that too. So really depending on what the kind of geometry you start off with, you can really start creating highly realistic visuals that you can then export out to other file formats, other 3D modeling software, or even in AR. And here we have a rule for a green space as well. So if you want to kind of dress it up, make it look really nice with some green space, you can do that too. This also applies to streets, so not just buildings, but if you have streets that you want to be able to model or different street typologies that you want to be able to model, you can do that. And again, it's all procedural. So if you change the geometry, it'll automatically regenerate to match that geometry and that shape. Here you're playing around with bus lanes, bike lanes, adding in street lights, street trees. We have a whole library of different trees that you can choose from. And you can save these styles as well and reference them back again. So a lot that you can do with streets as well. And then finally, if you want to take it again to another software, if you want to bring it into a game engine or something like that, City Engine is a great platform for being able to export out to other platforms like AR, like a game engine, like you see here. This is Twin Motion. So I took a backyard cottage and brought it into a Twin Motion game engine to make it look more realistic, create a little fly through. And again, you can export this out to all types of different file formats. Now, I wanted to touch on some of the ways it's been used for historical recreation in the past. So it actually has a long history of doing this sort of work. A huge project that was done, I think, in 2008, and it's still ongoing. I think they're updating it all the time, was the Rome Reborn project. So what they did is they used City Engine to design all these different architectural designs from ancient Rome. And I think it's over 7,000 buildings that they were able to generate with City Engine. And you can see some of the renderings here from that effort. If you were to do this by hand, it would have not have been feasible. But what's great, again, with City Engine, you can encode all those designs into a rule and apply those rules to the city en masse. And I think this kind of work is really important for being able to open up new channels for people to interact with these models for education, for collaboration between scholars and governments, and also just help us preserve history in a way that's highly realistic in a 3D setting and also in a way that you can interact with it. This is leads me to my own project. So as part of my master's for urban and regional planning, for my thesis, I wanted to recreate what the historical corridor looked like where I-95 now cuts through Philadelphia. So this was some of the oldest parts of the city before I-95 kind of cut through it. You can imagine the city was settled on the bank of the Delaware River here and expanded out westward. And this is a project I did to help show what this city in this area used to look like. So right here, we see all the different parcels. So the gray are the parcels that still exist, and everything else no longer exists. And what really sticks out is you have these lost city blocks that no longer exist and that the I-95 kind of cut right through there. So I think this work, again, is really important for being able to see what we lost along the way and help make better decisions in the future. This is a fire insurance map from the 1950s, contains a wealth of information and details about the buildings, like the height, what it was used for, the material. So really great for, these kind of historical recreation workflows. And actually, I used it for the building that I am going to show you in a second. So where City Engine comes in with this project is being able to take those building footprints along the I-95 corridor, apply a rule to it. So again, I'm not designing each building kind of one by one. I selected a bunch of parcels or a bunch of building footprints and applied a rule, a similar rule to a lot of them. And then the end result is something like this. So we have our georeferenced Sanborn map fire insurance map, and then the 3D City Engine models. So you can see this whole neighborhood that once existed along the I-95 corridor uh, that no longer exists anymore. So again, with some of this modeling, the design is not exactly highly detailed. I wanted to get the heights and I wanted to get the facade correct, but everything else I kind of, left up to whatever the rule had for me. I didn't really get into the architecture too much. And that's where I wanted to get into with this new project. So how to create a building that no longer exists accurately within City Engine. So to go from a photograph of something like this to an actual 3D model based on that photograph. So this is the skyscrapers of Philadelphia from an 1898 poster. And it's, 9 of them still stand, which is amazing. But it's funny because the building I chose, the model here, comes in at 145 feet. So today that would maybe be a mid-sized building, or depending on some cities, a small-scale building. But back then, it was considered a skyscraper, which is amazing. Then you have City Hall there with William Penn on top, dominating the skyline. But I wanted to choose this building because it seemed like the easiest to do, honestly. And it was my first time going through this workflow, so I wanted just to get my feet wet with something that didn't have a lot of architectural design, like maybe uh, some of the other buildings, like City Hall. You can see all the different statues and the clock tower and all these different articulations. So I wanted to start off with something more simple there. So this is the Odd Fellows Temple. Um, some history on this building. The Independent Order of Odd Fellows was a benevolent, though secretive, charitable organization founded in the 18th century in Britain. And they helped, different families in need, whether it was the families of factory workers or farmers or orphans. And then in the 1800s, they expanded out from Britain into North America and created these really nice, beautiful buildings throughout a lot of East Coast cities. And the historian Harry Kyriakodis, he's a local historian. He's done a lot of work on this that was really helpful for me as I tried to kind of unpack the history of this building. There used to be a 2,000 person auditorium in the lower levels of the building. There was office space, there was a restaurant, there was a lot of different lodging. So really active building in its heyday. Now, I actually had a lot of trouble finding where this building used to be. I knew it was at the corners of Cherry Street and Broad Street in the US, but what I didn't realize is that that street really no longer exists. So just to kind of give some orientation here, we have City Hall. This is the building with the William Penn statue on top. And then we have the convention center kind of right smack in the middle here. So there used to be a street here. So Cherry Street used to run right through where the convention center now is. And this is a better map that you can see kind of the ends of Cherry Street and where it used to run through. So I used the Sanborn maps, Sanborn fire insurance maps to locate what this area used to look like before. And then I found the Oddfellows Temple right there in blue on the corner, again, of Broad Street and Cherry Street. And this is a photo by Bradley Mall around 2008 showing the demolition of it. So they demolished it to make room for the expansion to the convention center. Again, you have City Hall there with William Penn and then the wrecking ball mid-swing taking out the building there. So this is the building that I was going to recreate. Now we can jump into how to actually recreate a building with City Engine. And it all really starts with the Facade Wizard. So this is a capability, a workflow within City Engine that allows you to take a 2D image like you see here and be able to build out a whole building from it. So and we'll jump into City Engine in a second, but you see here we have our 2D facade. And what the Facade Wizard allows you to do is create these different splits in the image. So you create these different splits that, according to the different components of the architecture. But a really important part of this process is the ability to repeat splits. So what you can do here, you see in the blue area and the red area, you can choose what component of the building you want to repeat throughout the rest of the building. So in the final workflow where I apply this to create my realistic 3D model, the portion in red won't be visible. It'll just be that portion in blue that's repeated in all these different rectangular portions you see on the bottom level here. So this is really powerful for being able to, if you make an edit in this blue area, it'll replicate that edit in every other square or rectangle or portion of the building that you're replicating that based off of, if that makes sense. It just cuts down a lot of different manpower in terms of having to edit every single detail of every single window. You can just edit one window and have that change apply to all the other windows. So you can keep splitting. Again, we can do X splits and Y splits. Again, that portion, that window in blue is going to be replicated for all the other portions you see there in red. And then you can continue to refine and get more detailed in terms of the splits you do. You can also adjust the Z value as well. So if you want the windows to be indented a little bit and bring out maybe some ledges, you can also adjust that in the Facade Wizard as well. And this is important. This gets into our discussion of level of detail. So if you would like to create a building in 3D with just kind of the facade image pasted on there like a skin, that is totally fine. And that's considered a low level of detail, but depending on what you're going for or how much time you have or, the technical expertise, that can work just fine, especially in AR, where maybe you're not looking at it up close, maybe you're looking at it from a distance. Is a totally acceptable and great way to show different models in 3D. If you want to get a little more detailed with like a level of detail 1, you can start to do those splits like I showed in the Facade Wizard to kind of call out some of the windows, the ledges, the frames around the windows. And then if you start playing with those Z values, like I was showing you, you can get a little higher level of detail. So we see the ledges are brought out, the windows are indented. And then if you really want to go for the whole thing here, you can start to uh, position different 3D models on your facade. So City Engine on the left here has these different models that you can apply to different parts of your building facade. And then again, because it's going to be repeated throughout all those other parts of the building, that part, that articulation, that ledge will also get repeated. So this is a high level of detail. And this is what I did for my project. So the first step is getting that 2D image. So I took that historical photo. Again, I was telling Nick this. It's kind of funny. This is one of the only pictures I can find of the Odd Fellows Temple, even though it was only demolished in 2008. So you think there'd be a more modern photo of a building that was demolished in the 2000s, but this is really all I can find. So I just went with it. But if you have a photo that's more realistic, that's taken, within this century, then chances are your model is going to look a lot better than mine because you'll just have more details to show in your workflow. But the way this works is to crop an image within City Engine. There's a window for this. This is the most important part, I think, because this is what you're going to base your whole model off of. And then in the Facade Wizard, this is where I'm doing my splits, calling out the ledges, calling out the windows, getting as kind of detailed as the photo will let me. And then once I have windows, again, I can play around with those Z values to indent them, maybe bring out some of the other parts of the building. And then from there, we get our building. So I'm going to jump into City Engine from here to kind of show you the final result. Let's see. All right. So here we are in City Engine. It's a desktop application. So just, it's not based on the web or anything. You can download it to your computer. So this was the fire insurance map. So again, you have Cherry Street, you have Broad Street here, and this is the building. And this is important in terms of getting the footprint. So the footprint that I'm going to apply my 3D model to. So I just traced out this footprint here. And then within City Engine, what I did is I set the height. So I'm in meters right now. So I'll just put in the height in meters and then expand out my building to that height. Then from here, I'm going to go to Window, and we have the Facade Wizard right here. Then I can choose an image. Shows up on my other screen. So from here, I can bring in an image and choose the width of that image. And then again, we can start doing our splits like I showed you in the previous video. And then again, to get to something like this cropped image, there is a workflow. So over here, I have all my different files. So if I wanted to go to images, and then you can see the final image there. If I right click and click crop image, it'll bring up that workflow where I can kind of nail down the exact image I want to build my splits off of. And as I'm making every one of these splits, City Engine on the background, behind the scenes, is creating a rule. And it's writing a rule for every split that I do, every Z value that I put in. And so the goal is to have a rule at the end of it that you can apply to your building massing. And as well, I didn't have all the sides of the building, I just had the front. And so what I did was I created different rules that allowed me to procedurally create different sides of the building. So if I go to my rule file up here, you can see I have a couple different rules. Now, something important to note is when I created this massing, all the sides of the building are connected to one another. So what I'm going to do is separate those faces from one another. This way, if I applied a rule, it'll apply it to the whole building, but really I have rules for the front, for the side, for the back, and also for the roof. So once I save, I'm finished editing, creating all my splits and everything, I can go ahead, save that as a rule, and then again, just drag and drop onto these facades or these sides of the building. And this is the end result. Now, I'm sure you're wondering how I can get some of these elements, so the pediments and maybe some of these indentations in the rule, and I'll show you how you can do that. So again, City Engine comes with some of these assets out of the box. So for instance, if I were to go to this square pediment, so this is a 3D model within City Engine that I can then put into the rule that I just applied to the side of the building. And if I open up this rule file, so this was the front, it'll pop up here. And again, I didn't manually write any of this code. This is all done through the splitting in the Facade Wizard. So City Engine is writing this code as you're doing that splits. But if you wanted to add some of these 3D models, like the pediments that we see here, what you can do is essentially reference, and there's a tutorial online that walks you through how to do this, but essentially you're referencing the object that I just showed down here. And then you're telling the City Engine where you want that to be applied. And because again, a lot of this is done through repeated splits. Once you apply it in one place, it'll apply it everywhere else. That same rule, that same part of the rule is applied. That makes sense. But the tutorial gets into it a little bit more if you're curious about following up on this. But that's only one side of the building. Again, we have the entryway here. So I needed to create another rule, again, with the same facade that essentially kind of skipped over the entryway. So for that, let's see if I can apply that rule here. So this is the side of it. And essentially here, I'm just selecting what part of the rule file I want applied to this building. So again, same photo, just created the rule in a certain way that it skipped over that part of the building that has the archway and the entrance. I also have another one here. And then I had this interesting little corner piece as well. So this specific rule on the side didn't work too well with that. So what I did here is just create another rule that helped fit that one a little bit better. But again, all based off the same photograph. Then for the top, um, City Engine has all these different roof textures that you can use. So I didn't use anything from the picture for this one. All I did was just dragged and dropped the rule for this roof here. And City Engine gives you this little dialog box that kind of, shows you how you can apply this photo to this space, and that's what it did. And then here we have our building. It's the right heights, the right, dimensions based on what we have from the map. If we wanted to go further and add in some more realistic windows, we can do that. But let me go ahead and turn off the shape. So this is what it looks like without the underlying box, that it's based on. Then from here, what you would do is, we'll turn on the shapes again. You would select it, go to File, Export Model, and we have all these different file formats that we can export to. And for doing it in AR, we have this Kronos Group GITF export file that works really well with the textures and everything within inCitu. So you can go ahead, export it that way, and bring it into your desktop, or you can upload it into the inCitu app, which I'll show you in a second here. Well, first of all, if you want to be able to view it on your own table right now, go ahead. I'll give you maybe a couple seconds, 10 seconds here. Pull your phone and take a picture of it. Maybe Nick, you can let me know if it's working well. It was working for me this morning,
Yeah,
but
I'll try it out right now. Give it a try. If you're on iOS, it should come up as an app clip when you click Start AR off-site. It'll prompt you for your camera permission, and then you point at a flat surface and tap your finger to load the model in. You can swipe and pinch to zoom the model on your tabletop. If you have Android, I think you might have to have instant apps enabled from your Play Store settings, but give it a try. Let us know in the chat if you need any help, and Donna can pull you in to DM to help.
cool.
By the way, Don, we had a question about that tutorial you mentioned earlier about, what was it, the facade?
Facade Wizard, yeah.
Yeah.
Like which one it is, or sorry, I don't have the chat open.
I think you were mentioning like the code itself and how to reference
Yes,
it.
so the Facade Wizard tutorial has all the code to do what I did on the 3D model. So if you want to get a 3D object, like the pediments and the ledges and things like that, the 3D articulations from the facade,
I've
and
got a
put that
link
in the code.
here for basic facade creation. There might be another one
Yep, there's
as well.
an A and a B part
Yeah.
to it. So if you're looking for adding those 3D models to the facade, you're probably looking at the B tutorial, so the follow-up. But this is a good one, the first one, to understand how this all works.
Awesome.
Thanks, Nick,
So,
for posting that.
explain a little what we're seeing in AR here. So the roofs and the sides were not referenced in the photo. How did you, can you remind us how you got those?
Yeah, so when you're within the Facade Wizard, within City Engine, and you have your image, what you can do is essentially create a split. Sorry, I'll show you here. We have these different Y splits, X splits. So let's say I were to create a split right here. What I can do is select this specific component to be repeated along all the other parts, all the other components you see in red there. If I wanted it to be this region, I would do that, but maybe I wouldn't be a good idea to, because you get half the doorway there. So to create the sides of the building, essentially it's one of these components repeated across all of these different segments. So that's how you're able to skip over the doorway, is because it's just referencing one part of the image and repeating that along this entire level here, if that makes sense. So that's how you're
Great,
able to,
great for the classic architecture with more symmetry too, right?
yeah,
A lot of repeating motifs. Huh?
exactly. Oh, Dan, I see yours in the chat here. That's amazing.
Yeah, that's cool to see it on the sketch pad too.
Yeah, yeah, that does look really cool.
Awesome. Uh, okay, so just time check. We're at 2:30. We got about half an hour left to see it in action, and then I'd love to hear more when you get to it about the history of the of this building as well, and yeah, anything else that you've learned.
Yeah, awesome. So hopefully everyone had a chance to uh, take a picture or something of that so they can see it in their own space. So then I went downtown. So this is, again, that City Hall is a great reference because it's so big and iconic. This is the new convention center. I learned from my mom recently. So my dad was an iron worker, that he actually worked on this building. I had no idea. And so the Oddfellows Temple was right next to this building here. And so on the next slide, we can actually see it there. So this is where it once stood, the Oddfellows Temple, before the expansion of the convention center. And getting up a little close, it's kind of cool to see the similarities. So the building on the right came later, but you can see, I think they took some inspiration from the Oddfellows Temple in terms of that having that first story archway, and maybe the ledge almost in the exact same place as well. So very interesting how maybe they were creating and architecting this building in the context of the surrounding buildings around it.
That's so cool, Don. How was your process with inCitu of going out to set it up on location?
Yeah, so there's actually yeah, this video might be helpful for that. Um, so you're able to geolocate it in Situ's online website. So that's what I did is I exported out from City Engine, uploaded it to, in fact, I think I have it here. I can pull it up. So I brought it in here. You're able to geolocate it within this application. And then from the app, it makes me aware when I'm in a certain proximity to the model. Do you want to see the Oddfellows Temple? You click see it in AR, and that's where you get something like this. And if it's not quite in the place that it should be, there's this AR edit button at the top right that allows you to adjust, the lat long, the scale, the elevation, all those different things. So if you're really looking to fine tune some of that, you can see it. You can do that right in the app on the ground there.
I wonder if
And
anybody's in Philadelphia, but if you can get within 300 meters of where this project is, you can try it out yourself with the same QR code, so it'll detect if you're within 300 meters.
there you go. And let me know if you do. I'd love to. There's a lot more buildings to build out, and they are. This is just from a little farther down the road here. Ch Cherry Street used to run right along there, but you can see now it's all built out. But again, I just think in looking at it within context of the building that's there, it's pretty incredible. Just to see the architectural design. I think that's me taking a photo of it. That's why it stopped. In fact, I think, yeah. So that's it in AR. Really cool to see. I think a goal of mine again is to build out more of these, especially with the 250th anniversary of the US coming up, to kind of do this really cool history tour of the buildings that once dominated the Philadelphia skyline. And that's kind of where I want to um, leave off today. I guess I'm a little ahead of schedule, but this was just one building in Philadelphia. There's still 9 more out there that don't no longer exist, but they can be rebuilt with City Engine and then brought into AR. And again, have a really cool walking tour. Be able to highlight some of the history here. And this, I think, Nick, you already put this in the chat, but this is a QR code to the Facade Wizard tutorial if anyone wanted to get that as well. Um, but
Amazing.